Level 1, the backyard camper. You are 9 years old and the tent is in the backyard 12 feet from the back door. It is a 2-person dome tent your dad bought at a hardware store. Blue and gray, the kind of tent that looks simple on the box and becomes a puzzle the moment it comes out of the bag. It takes both of you 40 minutes to figure out which pole goes where. Your dad pretends the instructions are badly written. You pretend you believe him. You've got a flashlight, a sleeping bag rated for temperatures far colder than a July night will ever reach, and a bag of chips you are not supposed to eat inside the tent. Your mom checks on you through the kitchen window twice before 10 o'clock. The second time, she raises 2 fingers like a warning. Last chance to come inside. You don't. You are outside. The porch light is off. The house is close enough to save you, but far enough to feel like another country. The stars are out, or at least the 3 you can see past the streetlight. You decide 3 is enough. Every sound becomes evidence. The neighbor's cat is definitely a raccoon. A car door 3 houses down sounds like someone entering the woods, even though there are no woods, only a fence and your dad's half-dead tomato plants. You have read 2 survival books from the library, cover to cover, and now you know things. How to find direction from the sun, how to purify water, how to build a fire with a bow drill. None of which is useful 12 feet from a microwave. You fall asleep around midnight, later than you've ever stayed up on purpose, and wake at 6 with dew on the rainfly and grass marks pressed into your knees. There is a feeling in your chest you don't have a word for yet. It is not exactly happiness. It is not exactly bravery. It is the feeling of being slightly farther from ordinary life than you were yesterday. You ask to do it again the next weekend. Your dad says maybe next month. You start planning anyway. Level 2, the first real trip. 14 years old, and it is not the backyard anymore. It is a state park 2 hours from home. A 6-mile loop trail your scout troop leader calls moderate, which turns out to mean something very different to a 40-year-old man with old hiking stories than it does to you. Your pack weighs more than it should because you packed for every possible disaster instead of the actual weekend. 3 extra shirts, a book you never open, a camp chair that seemed essential in the store and begins to feel like a personal insult by mile 4. Your boots are new, which is the first mistake everyone explains to you with great calmness after the blisters have already arrived. By the second mile, both heels are burning. By the third, you start bargaining with yourself. By the fourth, you understand that pain can be boring and dramatic at the same time. You set up the tent in rain this time. Real rain, not the gentle backyard kind you imagined from inside the house. The instructions you memorized at home stop mattering when your hands are cold. The stakes won't go into wet ground, and one corner of the tent keeps sagging like it has given up on the trip before you have. Someone in your group gets the fire going with wet wood and a single fire starter cube. You watch closely because this is when you realize the library books left out the part where everything is damp, crooked, cold, and slightly embarrassing. You eat dehydrated chili from a pouch, sitting on a log with your hood half over your eyes. And it is the best meal you've had all year for reasons that have almost nothing to do with chili. You sleep badly. The ground is harder than expected, and something under your sleeping pad spends the entire night making itself known without ever revealing what it is. In the morning, your legs are stiff, your feet hurt, and your socks are in a condition no one should have to discuss. And still, while everyone else is packing up, you catch yourself looking back at the trail and wondering what another night would feel like. Level 3, the gear collector. 17, and you've got a part-time job now. Technically, the job is for gas money, school expenses, and learning responsibility. In reality, it exists to fund the growing mountain of outdoor gear in your closet. You buy your first real backpacking pack, 65 liters, fitted properly at the outdoor store by an employee who adjusts the torso length and makes you walk around with sandbags in it like you are training for something important. You take it seriously because, in your mind, you are. A down sleeping bag replaces the bulky synthetic one from before. The first time you compress it to the size of a loaf of bread, it feels less like a piece of equipment and more like proof that better versions of things exist. You buy a water filter after reading 4 reviews, watching 3 videos, and convincing yourself that choosing between 2 nearly identical models is a matter of survival. You choose a stove after watching boil time comparisons you had no real need to watch. You learn words like titanium, denier, fill power, hydrostatic head, and vestibule, and they begin to sound normal in your mouth. You know why cotton is a mistake in the backcountry. You know why merino wool costs what it costs. You know the quiet shame of explaining to someone that no, a regular school backpack is not the same thing. At first, you think gear is about being prepared. Then, slowly, you realize it is also about imagination. Every new item feels like a promise. This filter means you can go farther. This stove means you can stay longer. This pack means the person you are becoming has a shape, straps, buckles, and a hip belt. You plan trips around gear you want to test as much as places you want to see, which you understand is slightly backwards. You do it anyway. This is also the year you do your first overnight completely alone. No troop, no group, no one talking too loudly while you try to hear the creek. Just you, 6 miles in, a ridge campsite you picked from a map, and a silence that feels different when there is nobody else around to confirm it. You are scared while setting up camp. Not terrified, not in danger, just aware of yourself in a way you have never been aware before. You don't tell anyone that part when you get home. You mention the mileage, the campsite, the gear that worked well. You leave out the 20 minutes when every snapping twig sounded like a decision. A month later, you go alone again. By the second night, the fear is still there, but it has moved. It is no longer standing in front of you. It is walking beside you, quiet enough to live with. Level 4, the backpacker 21, and the trips have gotten longer. 4 days, 5 days, once a full week on a section of trail with a resupply box, mailed ahead to a post office in a town you had never heard of before you wrote its name on the label. Your pack weight has gone the opposite direction from level 3. You used to carry things because they made you feel ready. Now you leave things behind because you have learned that readiness is not the same as weight. You cut the handle off your toothbrush and pretend it is about efficiency, though some part of you knows it is also about identity. Nobody truly needs those 7 grams gone, but the trail has made you suspicious of everything you carry. You know exactly how many grams your quilt weighs compared with your old sleeping bag. You have started measuring food in calories per ounce instead of by taste, though somehow taste has become more generous out here. Peanut butter on a tortilla becomes a meal. Instant potatoes become comfort. A crushed candy bar found in the bottom of a food bag becomes an event worth announcing. You've hiked in weather that would have ended the trip at level 2, hail on an exposed ridge, a river crossing that came up past your knees, a night that dropped 10 degrees below forecast and taught you the difference between uncomfortable and actually unsafe. None of it stops you automatically anymore, and that fact tells you something about yourself you did not know before. You navigate with a map and compass now, not just an app, because you had one trip where the phone battery died. The trail markers disappeared into a scree field, and the world suddenly stopped providing blue dots. You had to stop, breathe, look at the land, and think. That day changed something. You started noticing which plants usually mean water is nearby, how the light turns thin an hour before dark, which clouds are decoration and which ones are instructions. The trail has started teaching you a version of patience that nothing else has ever managed to teach. Not the patience of waiting politely, the patience of moving at the speed the situation allows, even when your ego wants to move faster. Level 5, the Thru-Hiker attempt 25, and you've quit a job to do this. Explaining it to your parents felt insane. Explaining it to your friends felt dramatic. Explaining it to yourself was the hardest part, because even you were not completely sure whether you were chasing something or leaving something. You are 3 weeks into a long trail now, 500 miles behind you, enough distance to make home feel abstract, but not enough to make the finish feel real. Your body has changed in ways you did not expect. Your legs are stronger. Your appetite has become unreasonable. Your feet look like they belong to someone who has been negotiating with rocks for a living. You have gone through 2 pairs of boots already, and the third pair feels less like footwear and more like a business partnership. You have trail friends now, people whose last names you don't know, people whose trail names you use without hesitation, people you might never see again after this summer, but who understand the exact expression on your face when the next climb appears around the bend. They know how much silence to leave around bad news. They know which jokes only work when everyone smells terrible. They know that a gas station sandwich can become a ceremony if you have walked far enough for it. Then come the low points nobody describes clearly enough. A week of rain that does not become an adventure story while it is happening. A resupply town where your card gets declined and you stand under fluorescent lights trying not to look as tired as you are. A tendon in your ankle that starts as a whisper and slowly becomes the only voice in the room. You tell yourself you can walk through it. Then you tell yourself you can rest through it. Then you begin to understand that some things do not become true just because you need them to. You don't finish. An injury at mile 800 sends you home early. The decision happens in a cheap motel room beside a highway, sitting on the edge of a bed with one sock off, your ankle swollen, laundromat heat coming through the wall, your pack leaning in the corner like it is disappointed in you. It is the worst thing that has happened to you in years, and somehow, eventually not a failure. Not right away. At first, it is absolutely a failure. It feels like one in the airport. It feels like one in your bedroom. It feels like one when people ask, carefully, how far you got. But winter comes. You read trail journals. You look at maps. You You replay every choice you made and slowly stop punishing yourself for the one choice that brought you home intact. You learn more from stopping than you might have learned from finishing clean. By spring, you are planning the next attempt, not because you have something to prove to anyone else, because the unfinished trail has become a conversation and you are not done speaking. Level 6, the technical Mountaineer 29, and the trips have gotten technical in ways the earlier levels did not prepare you for. Crampons and an ice axe instead of just boots, a helmet, a harness, a rope between you and a partner on a glacier crossing. Because crevasses do not announce themselves and you have read enough accident reports to respect silence. You have taken an avalanche safety course. You carry a beacon, a probe, and a shovel, and you know how to use all three under pressure because you have practiced under pressure. Not just read the manual. By now, adventure no longer means ignoring risk. It means respecting risk enough to come home. You summit a peak this year that requires a 2 a.m. start. Headlamps move through the dark in a quiet line. Snow reflects just enough light to make the world feel unfinished. For hours, there is nothing but your breathing, your partner's breathing, and the steady crunch of crampons. The summit is beautiful, but it is not the part that changes you. The part that changes you happens on another mountain, 600 feet below the top, when the weather window closes faster than forecast. You turn back, not because you are not strong enough, not because you are scared in the simple way people imagine fear. You turn back because you really understand now, that a mountain is not going anywhere. And you would also like to not go anywhere permanently before your time. That decision costs you nothing you can name and saves you everything. Level 7, the Route Finder 33, and people have started asking you to plan the trips instead of just join them. At first, this feels flattering. Then it becomes responsibility. You have built a mental map of a dozen ranges, where the reliable water sources are, which trailheads turn into parking lot chaos by sunrise, which campsites look good online but are exposed to wind all night, which ones nobody talks about because the extra mile of elevation keeps casual people away. You read terrain, now the way you used to read trail signs. A slope tells you what kind of snow it might be holding. A drainage tells you where water has been, even if it is not there today. A sky tells you not what the weather is, but how much time you actually have before it changes. You have become less impressed by distance. A long route is not automatically a good route. A hidden route is not automatically a wise one. A hard route is not automatically proof of character. This is the level where you begin saying no. No to a ridge with the wrong forecast. No to bringing a beginner into terrain they cannot yet read. No to the version of yourself that once believed a story was better if it nearly went wrong. You have had 2 real close calls in all these years, and neither turned into a story you tell at parties. Because nothing exploded, nobody fell, no dramatic rescue came. They resolved quietly through decisions made correctly, in the moment with no room for a second attempt. You don't call it luck anymore. Luck may have been present. You are humble enough to admit that. But the part you can control has another name: paying attention. And by now, paying attention feels less like a skill and more like a way of being alive. Level 8, the Mentor 38, and you are leading trips for people now. Sometimes for money, mostly because someone asks, and you remember how badly you once needed someone who knew what they were doing. A coworker's kid wants to do their first overnight, and everyone points to you. A friend buys gear for a big trip and asks you to look it over before they go. You watch a beginner pack 6 pounds of fear into a backpack. Too many clothes, too much food. A flashlight big enough to signal aircraft. 3 knives for reasons even they cannot explain. You do not laugh. You remember being exactly that kind of prepared. So you teach the things nobody taught you clearly. How to pack a bag so the weight sits on the hips instead of punishing the shoulders. How to read weather building on the horizon. How to keep hands busy when a plan falls apart 6 miles from the car. You teach them that being cold is different from being in danger, but also that the line between those two deserves respect. You tell them the truth about the failed thru-hike, the summit you turned back from, the night you got the fire wrong and stayed cold until dawn. You have learned that the mistakes are the lesson, not the price you pay before the lesson begins. Some of them listen and grow into hikers you are proud to have out there. Some of them buy the wrong gear, ignore the weather, pack too much, pack too little, and learn the hard way anyway, which is also, eventually, how you learned. Level 9, the Lifer 52, and you still go out most weekends. The trips look different. Now, shorter mileage, more stops, more time sitting on a rock, watching light move across a valley, without needing to turn it into achievement. You have worn out more boots than you can count. You have slept on ridgelines, in valleys, beside lakes, under tarps, in shelters, and once, memorably, inside a snow cave you built yourself because the storm arrived faster than forecast, and you knew exactly what to do about it. The old gear has mostly disappeared by now. The blue and gray backyard tent is long gone. The first flashlight stopped working years ago. The boots from your teenage trip would not fit your feet even if they had survived. But the feeling from that first night has not left. It has simply changed volume. At 9, it was loud. It made every sound enormous and every shadow meaningful. At 52, it is quieter, deeper, less interested in proving itself. You still notice the light an hour before dark. You still know which clouds mean nothing and which ones mean move now. You still feel the small lift in your chest when the trail turns and the view opens without warning. The difference is that you no longer need to own it, name it, photograph it, or explain it to anyone. You just stand there for a while. Somewhere right now, there is a 9-year-old in a backyard, inside a tent 12 feet from the back door. They are listening to a cat somewhere, a car door 3 houses down, the tiny creak of nylon as the night cools. They think they are camping. They do not know they are beginning a conversation that may last the rest of their life. They will not call it freedom yet. They will just ask to sleep outside again, and that will be enough.